Somewhere in the distance, he could smell the scent of human flesh. A child's flesh, to be precise. He raised his head in the air and stood perfectly still. His misshapen body hunched over, hiding in the underbrush outside the village. Ashbury was a small coastal village in Northumberland. You could see all the way to Samdon Isle from here, just a few miles off the coast. The small cottages were overgrown with ivy. The church was centuries old. And throughout these centuries, people have always told dark tales. Like that of Cascabel, a deformed creature that came at night and feasted on the flesh of children. Lightning streaked across the sky, briefly illuminating his face. Only this was no story. He had lived in the shadows for many years. His face was hideously distorted, his skin nearly white. His hands were like sharp claws. And he was hungry.
And when she opened her eyes, she saw that the brave prince had defeated the evil monster. And then the prince kissed her, and they lived happily ever after.
Oh, please feed me another. I'm not tired.
It's time for bed.
But I want another.
Benny, listen to your mother.
But what happened to the monster in the story?
Godfrey Wilbur leaned over and stroked his son's hair.
These old stories. They're not true, you know. They're no monsters. There's nothing out there.
Go to sleep. We're right next door.
Good night, Mum. Good night, Dad.
Good night. I love you.
Here's your bunny.
Thank you.
Little Benny turned over in his bed, away from the window, hugging his toy bunny tightly to his chest, and then he closed his eyes. But there was something out there. Benny didn't see the shadow rising in front of the window.
Bunny, did you hear that? Hello? Probably just the wind.
Benny listened intently for a few seconds. Nothing. He closed his eyes again. Cascabel waited until the boy was asleep. Then he slowly crept into the room. He made hardly any sound at all. He rose up next to the boy. His shadow loomed large in the moonlight. He raised his claw-like hands. When Benny opened his eyes, he was staring at a hideous face.
Help!
No. Quiet.
Oh my God! You! Get away from him!
Daddy!
Cascabel turned to look. The child's father stood in the doorway, pointing a shotgun at him.
What is that?
I don't know!
Benny, come here!
Mummy!
Oh, Benny!
Cascabel stared in terror at the rifle.
Shoot!
Quick as lightning, Cascabel turned, but the shot missed him, mostly. But he still felt the sting of a few pellets as they tore into his leg. He stumbled towards the window. The man raised the shotgun again. The second shot shattered the window, and with one leap, Cascabel was outside, sliding down the roof. He was bleeding, his leg hurt, and he was still hungry. So hungry. But there was no time. He had to get away to Samdon Isle, his home. The door opened, and he could see the outline of the man in the doorframe.
Get the dogs!
They came after him with torches, dogs, and rifles.
You are not loved. You are hated. You are hunted.
Cascabel had no idea where the voice had come from. He heard it in his head. He turned around. There was nothing but darkness. There, a light. He ran, but they were on him. He raised his hand against the glare of the torch.
Down, monster!
The man raised his shotgun.
Cascabel, I can help you. I can bring you home. Nocte Meridian. Yes, please. But I need something in return. Anything.
Who's he talking to? What difference does it make now?
Will you serve me?
Yes. Yes, I will. Stop talking, you freak.
Do I have your word? Your bond?
You have my word.
Very well.
Shut up, you beast. Shoot him already.
But then, something unexpected happened.
What's going on? I can't.
He found he no longer had control over his own hands. He raised the rifle up, away from his intended target.
What are you doing?
He was trying to fight it, but his own hands wouldn't obey him any longer. Against his will, the shotgun was now pointing at his companion.
This isn't me.
The shotgun unloaded into his stomach, tearing it to shreds. His intestines splattered over the ground.
No!
Then, the unseen force turned his hands around, pointing the shotgun at himself. His own hands, no longer controlled by him, pushed the barrel into his mouth. His eyes were bulging in fear, and then his finger twitched on the trigger. Pieces of brain and skull scattered through the night. His lifeless body dropped to the ground.
I am your servant. I am your servant. O King of Devils.
There is a darkness that is more than an absence of light. It's a living thing. It takes you completely. My name is John Sinclair. I work for Scotland Yard, Special Division. I woke up in the middle of the night. I'd felt a sudden, sharp pain, a voice crying out, and then silence. The moonlight shone through the window. Everything was still. I was in my flat. It was almost 4 a.m. I opened the bottle on my nightstand and took out the pills that kept me human. 2 little red pills, like rubies. A little over 2 months ago, I had become infected. But it wasn't just a normal illness. It was something else. It was intelligent. I almost died. I had crossed over, but I came back. And ever since then, I could feel it inside me, whispering to me.
John? Are you all right?
Fine.
You don't sound fine. You were screaming.
I looked at Samantha Nichols lying next to me in bed, the bed sheets draped over her naked body, her red hair flowing, blending into the semi-darkness. She gently caressed my shoulders. Her hands were warm against my cold skin.
What's going on?
Nothing.
John, don't do this.
Do what?
You're not being honest with me. Or yourself. There's a part of you that's always hidden.